Okay, I think I have been given the go-ahead to get started. And so I will start with just a very brief introduction, no more than 10 minutes. And so we can give enough time for questions and answers. So I'm speaking on behalf of Bassam, Dalia, and myself. I'm José Torero, and we are the program committee chairs for the 40th International Symposium on Combustion. And so I guess the main reason for this presentation is to try to make sure that we keep everybody informed of some changes that have been put in place for the next Combustion Symposium, and not only help you understand those changes, but also help you understand why we have implemented those changes. Before we started this process, there was a consultation of the broad membership of the Combustion Institute, and it was very clearly established that there was a need for some change. The number of papers that have been submitted to the recent symposiums has been very, very large, and therefore maintaining a quality review of those papers with the time restrictions that the symposium requires, and the subsequent publication of the proceedings made it extremely difficult to run the review process in a smooth way. In a similar manner, there's been numerous pressures coming from many angles in regards to the nature of what we do as combustion researchers, that we need to be able to respond and address. So these are some of the key reasons why these changes have been put in place, and we hope that this process of change that is starting with the 40th symposium is something that we can all buy into and help progress in a direction that continues our capability to move forward. So what are the drivers for change? We want to guarantee that we promote inclusiveness, and this is the first and foremost driver towards the change. We want to make sure that we give an opportunity to everybody that produces high quality work that merits to be presented in the symposium, the possibility of presenting that work. Now, this obviously requires us to accommodate an extraordinarily large number of paper submissions, but we do need to try to maintain the highest possible quality level review process. This is of extraordinary importance to maintain the reputation of the Combustion Symposium as well as the reputation of the proceedings. So nevertheless, this increasing number of papers and the restricted number of potential presentations at the symposium requires us to find a mechanism to increase the percentage of accepted quality papers without making the Combustion Symposium an extraordinarily large meeting that loses the essence of what the Combustion Symposium has always been, which is, a place where we all exchange ideas in all aspects of combustion research. So we need to broaden the scope to basically keep up with the times and more explicitly emphasize the impact and mitigation of combustion. This is something that we've been doing for a very long period of time, but nevertheless, the way in which the Combustion Symposium was structured did not make it explicit that we actually have an enormous place, to play in addressing the impact. Of mitigation, impact and mitigation of combustion. So we have the key changes are, first is that we have split the papers submitted into two groups, oral presentation papers and a poster presentation papers. Now, what does this mean? is at the moment of submission, there will be an initial assessment, and that initial assessment will not be an assessment that is intended to establish, to be the standard review process and establish an assessment on the basis of quality. It is an assessment that is intended to establish what is the most suitable form of presentation for the paper, whether it is oral presentation or it will be better presented as opposed to paper. Now, what is the rationale behind doing this? Is that we want to make better use of the PROCE review capabilities. As you know very well, there are two stages of the review process. The first stage of the review process has always been traditionally the review for the Combustion Symposium, while the PROCE review capabilities have remained dormant until that second stage of review that that is required for the publication in the proceedings. By doing this split at the onset of the process, we can start the process of review of the poster presentation papers. Now, by doing so, we enhance our capabilities and extend them in a way such that we can take the most advantage of our entire reviewing capability. And but also it enables us to increase the total number of accepted papers without increasing the number of sessions. So effectively what we're doing is creating sessions of poster paper presentations papers, and this will be distinctively labeled. They will not compete with any other presentation at the same time, and they will be granted a privileged space within the conference venue in a way such that they are highlighted as important contributions to the symposium. Now, they will be separate from the working process presentations that will have a completely different space, and therefore they will be distinguished for what they are, which is complete paper presentations. One of the things that is important to emphasize is that there will be no distinction between the two papers in the proceedings, nor there will be a distinction of quality. What we're aiming at is, and this is one of the reasons why it's done upfront, is basically just enable two forms of presentation. And we are allowing the authors that submit these papers to actually put forward their choice. That, of course, will be considered. It might not necessarily be granted, but will be considered. Now, the criteria for differentiating these two formats of presentation is in the website below, and with the call for papers. So there has been an extensive consultation on the matter. Over the last 7 months, we have been iterating different approaches, and we have engaged a broad consultation process with all key stakeholders. So we've talked with the Combustion Institute executive, with the office, the local hosts, and they've all been involved in every step of the process. We have engaged in very healthy debate, but we are very heartened by the enthusiasm that has been shown by everybody, and the many contributions we have received by many members that care very much about the symposium. There's many pressing issues that have been identified and given different priority, and we've been trying to address them all with this new approach. The PCCs have devised a strategy to address those issues in a way that attempts to preserve as much of our tradition, which enabling us to adapt to new changes that are happening all around us. So finally, I want to present a comparison between Vancouver and what is planned for Milan. As you will see, we aim at targeting the same number of oral presentation papers, 450 more or less, but with an additional 150 to 200 poster paper presentations that we expect will be accepted. Now, there will be really no distinction between the papers other than the format of presentation. And as you will see, we will do the same waiver of fees for students. We will have the same number of session chairs, for both types of presentations. The best paper award will follow exactly the same pattern and will not differentiate between the two forms of presentation. The only thing that really changes is the form of presentation. The standard 20-minute oral presentation papers will be preserved, but a period of 2 hours will be granted for the poster presentations. That would be, we're trying to place right after the lunch period. So we grant a very significant period of time for people to be able to be at the oral presentation room. In regards to acceptance letter, which is everything that concerns visas, funding, and so forth, we will word those letters in a way such that it poses no problem to the authors. And work in progress papers will follow the traditional path and will be differentiated clearly with signage at the symposium venue. The proceedings review for oral presentation papers will be the traditional after acceptance for oral presentation. There will be a second stage of review as has been done in past symposia. And in the case of poster paper presentation, it will start at the moment of differentiations, and papers will be accepted as the review process is completed. The appearance in the proceedings will be traditional for oral, presentations, and there will be no distinction between the two in the proceedings. So there will be no mention in the proceedings whether it was an OPP or a PPP. And as I said, the room for the presentations will be a very, very good space that promotes the kind of discussion that we would like to have for this work. So I will stop presenting here, and we will be more than happy, Bassam and myself, to answer any questions you might have.
All people thinking about questions, if I may, Jose, just add that both PPPs and OPPs authors will be asked to contribute a 20-minute video presentation of their talk. And these videos will be made available to all registrants. So they will be able to view it. There will be no online presentations. Everything will be in person. But we will allow for people to log in and watch these presentations only, basically. There's no live streaming as such, but they should be able to access these videos if they, for whatever reason, could not attend, if they are industry or they could not get a visa, it's too expensive. So both types of papers each will have a video presentation for 20 minutes to talk about their work.
I think we have a question. It says, thank you for organizing this. It's not clear to me whether the authors or the chairs choose whether a submission will be OPP or PPP. If the authors decide and submit an OPP paper, can the chairs move it to PPP? So what we're aiming at is that the authors will be requested to suggest what their preference is. And but there will be a committee conformed of experienced senior members of the Combustion Institute that will make that decision at the onset right after submission. So there will be a period of time where all these papers will be reviewed, and based on the criteria that we have set and it's been published at the Combustion Institute website, and this group of people will make a decision, and then all the authors will be informed as the review process is streamed in both directions of what is the decision of this committee in regards to what will be the form of presentation that has been assigned to their paper. There's a new question, says, thank you in advance for all the effort in revising the format. Can you please clarify the distinction in the review process between OPP and PPP and the relative timing? I'm not sure I follow the distinction so far. So you submit a paper, and then once you submit a paper, the paper, there will be a group of people who reviews all those papers, and this committee is going to be chaired by Bassam and myself. And there will be an initial decision that determines whether the paper is OPP or PPP. If the paper is an OPP, it will go through the traditional review process, and the decision of that review process is that the paper is accepted for oral presentation or is rejected. And that's the traditional process. For the PPP, what the proceedings editors will take control over that paper, and it will go through a review process in a similar manner as is done with a journal, and a decision will be made in a timely manner whether the paper is going to be accepted for a PPP or not. So again, there will be an accept or reject decision. Now, the timing, in the case of the PPP, papers will be accepted as the review process is completed. So it will just basically flow, and you will get a letter of acceptance as soon as the paper is being fully reviewed, but no later than May the 5th, I believe. Please confirm, Bassam, if that's correct. So May the 5th. And for the case of the OPPs, once a paper has been accepted for oral presentation, it will be handed back to the proceedings editors as it has been done in the past, and then they will conduct the review, and they decide if it is going to be accepted for the proceedings. And as you know, generally that process can be extended quite a bit, and so papers will be published again as the review process is completed.
Can I add something, Jose?
Yep.
When on submission, we're going to ask the authors to indicate novelty, contribution, and other aspects of the paper in 4 or 5 points, dot points, to help us in this process. We will also look at the abstract in the paper. So, of course, some people saying, well, it's impossible to read so many papers in such a short period, which is true. But we will be hoping that, and as Jose said, authors will have the choice if they want to select PPP, which is there's a lot of advantage for that, I may add. It's going to be treated as a journal paper. In other words, in the symposium, if you miss the top 40% and so on, you're basically, if your paper is missing something here or there, but it's a good paper, it will not be accepted because it will not make the cut. It's a good quality paper, but it's missing something here and there. With the PPP, you'll have an opportunity to have acceptance with major review, and then you'll be able to fix it, and then will also be accepted. We're not going to compromise on the quality, but the time frame will be different, and it will be treated more like a journal paper. So we expecting that it will be an easier process. There's I just also want to note as well, Jose, is that this similar thing was trialed in the past, I think in Naples, and where some papers were selected for poster presentation. But at the time, there was no consultation. You didn't know why your paper went here or there. You didn't have a say, basically. At the end here, what we want to do is you'll know from the start where your paper is going and how it's going to be treated. And we would try to make the process as fair as possible using well-established criteria. And we will not target a particular colloquium or particular experienced author or non-experienced author and so on. We will simply look at which is the best way to present this work, and we'll do it this way.
There's another question that says, the reviewer pool is basically the same for all submitted papers. Can you explain how the process will work with two categories of papers? Well, in essence, the problem is that for the traditional approach of the oral presentations, all the reviews have to be done in a very condensed period. So here, you basically take some papers away from the condensed period and you pass them on to a review process that is a much longer period. So effectively, you have reviewers working for 5 months instead of 1 month. And that basically enhances your pool of reviews significantly. So we're going to make you work for a slightly longer period of time. But by doing so, we hope that we are going to be able to have, a more rigorous and high quality review process. Will the reviewers know if they're reviewing the journal paper as PPP or OPP? Yes, they will, because if they are OPP, they will be addressed directly by the colloquium chairs. If it's a PPP, they will be addressed by the proceedings editors. Says, besides the publication in the proceedings, what is the difference between the work in progress and the poster presentation formats? The format in itself will be more or less the same, but the presentation period is completely different. For the post PPPs, there will be nothing competing. So there will be no sessions competing with the poster presentations, and they will be allocated a much more prominent place, and they will have a more significant period of time for the presentations, but the format in itself will be fundamentally the same.
And student authors will get exemption from registration, and also the PPPs will submit a video, 20-minute video as well of their paper, while that's not the case for work in progress.
There's a comment by Paul. I'll just reply that we will consider that, because I think that point is something that could be of value. So we will carefully consider the suggestion. But as you say, it's a little bit outside the scope. So we will just take it into consideration very carefully. In the PPP process, will there be a possibility for the authors to submit revised papers and have a second round of the review process, in contrast to the one-page rebuttal of the OPP? Yes, it will be handled as you will handle a journal paper. So effectively, you submit, you get reviews, you will get to respond, and then the editors might request more information and so forth, just like it will happen with a journal. There will be a way for rejected oral papers to access the poster paper track, not the PPP. So the PPP selection is done at the onset. Keep in mind that we aim as both being fundamentally the same quality type of papers. So OPPs and PPPs will follow parallel tracks, and there will not be an intersection between them. So one cannot go to the other. Of course, as always, subject matters of papers that do not get accepted, they can always be included in the work in progress, as has been done in the past. Whenever you want to take over, Bassam, just let me know. So each OPP and PPP will receive rankings from 3 reviewers, right? If an OPP submission does not get high enough rankings to get accepted for OPP, but its ranking are still higher than those in the PPP pool, there's a chance to move. Well, again, the answer is no. As I say, the aim is that the reviews will lead to the same quality papers. And whether it is an OPP or a PPP, that is only fundamentally a format of presentation. It has nothing to do with the quality of the papers. The papers that get accepted will have to have the ratings that are appropriate for a paper that is accepted for the Combustion Symposium, and whether it is an OPP or a PPP. And as I say, there is no pathway back from one to the other. I think I responded already to the next question. I think it's come back again.
I'm happy to take from here. So, Dahwan, yeah, this is a great idea. Yes, we will have a Q&A, a flowchart. So this is what we're intending to do. These sessions, we're going to conferences and talking and giving presentations. And I think, Renee, if we can save the chat, we will be able then to include those questions in the Q&A and then even add to them. And then as the queries come, we will be able even to make it a live document. So all these queries will be included and people will be able to answer them. When we submit the paper, do we state? Yes, so your preference of OPP and PPP will be asked for, and it's a preference. It's not, and I do hope that people will find value in the PPP. And that will select it, and of course then we're going to rely on a committee to help us make these decisions, but myself and Jose will take full basically will one make the final decision on this. But we were trying to because it's a new category, we're trying to explain the PPP as much as we can, and we hope that some people will find it useful and actually a good thing to have. So we'll pick it and we'll make our lives easier sort of in choosing which ones to go where. But potentially we're going to go through all of them and make sure that they are in the right track for the benefit of the symposium and the attendees. Can you recall the deadline? Yes, it's 4th of December, Jose, yeah?
Yep.
4th of December. We iterated a little bit on this. We wanted to make it earlier than this Thanksgivings and this industry people who say, oh, it'll take 3 weeks to get approval and things like that. So we eventually settled on the 4th of December to give us enough time to be able to do it in good time, also to inform the authors about the outcome of the review process. In fact, another step we took in is, which was implemented once before but not followed, that is, we're going to send the reviews to the authors and ask for rebuttal. And after, when we're going to send the rebuttal to the reviewers, we want this to be as open and transparent process as possible. And we think that the author will write the rebuttal differently, knowing that the reviewer will read it. And hopefully, you know, if they have a valid point, the reviewer will change their mind. And the paper will have a better chance. There's no clear time for PPP track. Will it be announced and determined later? The timeline for revision and rebuttal. It's like a journal paper. That one. Basically, we're committing to process all those papers by the 5th of May. Some of those papers will be accepted back in March or in April, or you know, maybe if we're optimistic, in February. But you will always know where your paper is and how is it tracking. But you know, we don't want to overpromise. So we thought maybe 5th of May is a deadline, and that all these papers will be actually processed by then. Well, the OPP criteria suggest that novel and unconventional approach will be encouraged in the OPP criteria, but such papers cannot be controversial and get rejected without passivity of a second round of review. OPP seems to be a riskier process for novel work. How do you plan to address? Not necessarily, Rob. I think the intention in the criteria we put in is we want we want a symposium to present novel work. We want the symposium to have, exciting discussions. I dare say controversy. I think the criteria, Rob, is that the paper is complete. I think the slightly difference is that, as you well know, a paper with major review is unlikely to be accepted in OPP because of the threshold that we have been imposing, because of the restrictions number of papers. I want to re-emphasize what José said many times. It's not a quality measure at all. It's which mode of presentation would benefit this paper better, and so on. So, if anything, we want to take risk. If anything, we want increase the excitement in the symposium, increase the discussion. And for the OPPs as well, because we also know that there's a second round of review for it to be accepted for the proceeding. And there, if there's something is totally wrong and so on that we missed, it will be caught there, and it has, as it has been in the past. So I doubt that this will be an issue at all. Another note, the symposium. Yeah, sorry.
If I may add, I mean, I think what we're aiming at is to take the most advantage of our reviewers' pool, and therefore the hope is that we are going to improve the review process, which I think will lead, to a better selection of papers, and so that's sort of the risk mitigation strategies. By improving the review process, in principle, we should get a better and more fair review.
The paper about soot. In fact, today I had some discussion with the extended committee of the International Sooting Flame workshop, and as you may know, I'm on the organizing committee as well. We have intentionally classified the colloquium into these 4 different categories. We wanted to communicate to younger researchers, to future students, to the rest of the world, if you want, that we are part of the solution and not just a problem. We wanted to emphasize how we're looking at combustion mitigations from flames. So, for example, I would say if it's particle synthesis and so on, it's likely to be more under the fundamentals. If it's abatement of soot formation from flames and so on, then it's more mitigation. And I acknowledge some papers will sit on the border in between. It doesn't really matter much. At the end of the day, the quality of the papers will be determined, and then they will be scheduled, and those who will be attending will know that this paper is about soot or about particle synthesis and so on, and will be grouped together in the program such that there's no confusion. One thing I also mentioned in my response to the ISF committee is that exclusiveness, as José put in the first point, is basically and cross fertilization is something that we wanted to increase. We want to have less silos and saying, okay, I'm going to sit and I'm exaggerating here in a soot session for the whole 5 days, and I don't want to hear about anything else. I think we could learn a lot from each other. I think it's important that we see what's happening in other fields, better understanding what other people are doing. There's workshops where you could delve as deep as you want, and where lots of discussion can happen, like in ISF. And we want the symposium to sort of enhance the learning and the interaction between attendees without losing the focus, and that's important to us. So if you really, we spend a lot of time, myself and José, going through the colloquia and making sure that we haven't missed anything, or any previous topic that people are working on. But it was important for us to communicate in this particular format, both for all of us to, especially younger people, to understand what we really do and how we do it, And second, for us to be able to communicate it more effectively outside. And third is we put as much text as we can to emphasize where it is. If in doubt, put both of them and we will make the selection. So don't fear that it's going to go to the wrong place. Can I add something else? Is that statistics show that a huge number of the papers that are rejected from the symposium within 2 to 3 weeks end up in CNF. So, I mean, it's not, these are papers that perhaps are not almost there or did not make the threshold and so on. But many of the people here on the list, I could see that actually have been either colloquium co-chairs or colloquium chairs, and know that you want to accept more, but and that you know, if the author could do this or could do that, it will be accepted. So why miss these papers? We wanted to basically give them a track where it will be accepted. But the emphasis again is on the best mode of presentation. But by expanding the number of papers that have been accepted, then those papers will potentially make it as well. Myself and Jose visited the venue. It's an excellent venue. It will cater for what we want to do quite well. We have a very well-prepared and enthusiastic host who were more than happy to accommodate everything we asked for. We're going back again in July to make sure that all is in place, and we're confident that we'll be able to deliver on this and avoid any of the previous issues with poster papers, in particular space and noise. And we want to maximize the exposure as well. So this way, then we will guarantee that everybody has a chance to present, and we'll increase the number of papers accepted.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you for your initial feedback. Rob was the first one I spoken to, and we shared a glass of wine in Vancouver, and the conversation continued after. So he will send me 2-3 pages of notes and so on. Thank you for your initial response, Rob.
Well, it seems that there are no further questions, but if any of you has any questions or queries that you would like us to address, please feel free to drop us a message at any point. I mean, we are trying to make sure that that we make everybody aware of the process in the most extensive manner possible. All the links that I indicated are in the Combustion Institute website. You can find them all there. And we will follow up with a request on making a set of FAQs, with the Combustion Institute office, and make sure that we compile all the key questions and answers to make sure that everything is as clear as possible. That's really our objective, to make sure that this transition is as transparent as possible to everybody. Okay, I think we probably should close, given that there's been no questions in the last 3 minutes. Oh, I think I missed your answer. Does every OPP or PPP submitter should submit a 20-minute video recording at this. No. The 20-minute video recording is when the paper is accepted. So if the paper is accepted, and either you're going to come to present an oral presentation or a poster presentation, then at that point you have to submit with your paper a 20-minute video recording to be made available during the symposium.
The entire, yes, of course. There has never been a restriction in the past. And of course, by the way, the fact is that it's a PPP. It doesn't mean that you're not attending a symposium. You have to attend the symposium like any other thing, and be there to present it. It is no difference than OPP. It's not okay. It made it to the proceeding. I don't have to come back. We will be quite strict about that. We want you to attend and present. The idea is just the format is different. That's all. Rob, all papers will be presented. All accepted PPPs will be presented. There will be 2 sessions currently, maybe 3, depending on the number we accept. And they will be located in one floor with a programmed session with session chairs, and the names of the papers and the presenters will be included in the program, like any other paper, basically. And then we'll indicate its position, so you could go and find it easily. And there will be enough signage to, if you want to go to this paper, you know what number it is, so you go straight in there and talk to the authors. And we want to have it as generous time as possible to maximize the interaction, so you could see multiple papers within this time frame. And if you miss any, you could also look at the video that is being presented for that PPP. So you won't miss basically anything. We're looking forward to a really exciting symposium. We selected the invited speakers. I think you're going to like them, and we're looking forward to the future. We want to sort of energize combustion research and give every opportunity for people to present and to interact during the symposium. And we hope that, we're confident we hopefully will succeed in that mission.
Well, I want to thank both José and Bassam for giving us the time to address these questions and sharing the information. And we here will create a frequently asked question document from the chat and the recorded answers that will be available on the website as soon as we can put that all together. But again, any future questions or additional questions, do not hesitate to email them to the PCCs or to the office, and we can include them in the frequently asked questions document as well. We will have one additional session at the end of the month. It's may not be a convenient time for some people, but it will be reminders will be sent out about the additional session happening on May 25th. So if anybody needs to remind someone else about it, there will be one more opportunity.
Yeah, and as José said, don't hesitate. If you have a question, please do ask, and we'll endeavor to. I mean, I guess you should send it to the Combustion Institute first, and unless it's specific to us, then do please send it to us. But we're happy to answer all the questions, and we'll add them to the frequently asked questions, so everybody will be informed.
Well,
All right.
thank you very much. I mean, and as Bassam said, please don't hesitate to contact us with any further questions.
See you, everyone.
See you.